The story begins with a girl asking to use his bath, but our MC refuses. Yet, she doesn't leave. Kazuki's mother scolds him for being rude and warmly invites Sayaka inside. Sayaka pauses, then quietly thanks her and steps in. Kazuki stands aside while his mother fusses over Sayaka praising her hard work and practice. She then glances at Kazuki, starting a comparison. The mood turns sharp as she calls him out for lazing around while he just lies there annoyed, telling her to leave him alone. Kazuki quietly complains it's unfair to always be compared to Sayaka. His mother brushes it off, telling him to learn from her instead. Later, while cooking, she suddenly realizes she forgot to give Sayaka a towel. Kazuki reluctantly agrees to bring Sayaka a towel. Her mother says no peeking. Grumbling, he insists he has no interest in seeing his childhood friend like that and heads to the bath. He remembers they used to bathe together as kids. His mind races at the thought of Sayaka naked, something he's never imagined before, and panics even more as her voice calls out to him. Kazuki freaks out over the image in his head. Flustered, he drops off the towel without looking, saying he'll leave it in the basket. Sayaka softly calls out to him from inside. Sayaka slides the door open, slightly peeking out while covering herself with foam. Calmly, she tells Kazuki they're out of shampoo. Kazuki freezes in shock for a split second, then instantly bolts away in a panic. Kazuki rushes upstairs while his mother calls after him about dinner. He shuts himself in his room and drops onto the bed, still shaken. The image of Sayaka flashes in his mind. Kazuki freezes, realizing what he just saw, and sits there overwhelmed, trying to process it. Kazuki slams his head in frustration, trying to erase the image from his mind. He keeps telling himself she's just a childhood friend, nothing more. But the thought won't go away. At school, Kazuki can't stop thinking about what he saw. He avoids Sayaka, unable to even look at her. When a friend calls out to walk home together, he brushes it off and decides to go home alone. Sayaka stops him in the hallway. Kazuki freezes, unable to meet her eyes. Kazuki awkwardly realizes it's Sayaka and fumbles his response. She calmly tells him she doesn't have club today, then asks him to walk home with her. They walk home together in silence. Kazuki stiffens, painfully aware of her beside him. Still, he ends up walking with Sayaka anyway. Kazuki keeps stealing glances at Sayaka, confused by how normal she's acting. He wonders if she's not bothered at all, while he's the only one still shaken by it, when suddenly she looks at him. Sayaka notices him staring and asks what's wrong. She leans in closer. Kazuki freezes, heart pounding, flustered by how nice she smells. Sayaka notices and asks if he's okay, pointing out he's been acting strange. Kazuki panics internally, realizing she's caught on. To ease the tension, she suggests stopping by a vending machine while he tries to calm himself down. Kazuki notices Sayaka picked her usual drink again and teases her about it. She blushes, focused on opening it carefully. He recalls how she used to spill it as a kid, just as it bursts open again in her hands. The drink spills all over Sayaka, soaking her shirt, while Kazuki stares, caught off guard. Blushing, Sayaka quietly admits she did it again. Kazuki, flustered and overwhelmed, tries to brush it off. They keep walking under the trees. Sayaka wipes at her shirt, frowning slightly. It's sticky! Sayaka suddenly stiffens. Ants start crawling up her legs. She freezes in shock as she realizes what's happening. Sayaka panics, frantically trying to shake the ants off. Kazuki realizes what's going on and points out there are more on her back. Flustered, she begs him to get them off, and he steels himself, stepping in to help. Sayaka lifts her skirt slightly, asking him to help. Kazuki freezes, completely overwhelmed. Kazuki panics and refuses, outright blurting that he can't. Trying to escape, he suggests getting bug spray instead, but as more ants crawl on her, Sayaka freaks out and tackles him to the ground in desperation. They crash to the ground, Sayaka landing on top of him. She quickly apologizes, flustered. Then, still close to him, she softly asks if he's okay. The moment lingers awkwardly. She's still on top of him, close enough that he freezes, wide-eyed and unsure what to do. Meanwhile, his thoughts cut in with a mix of confusion and fluster. Just what's her deal? He realizes he can't see Sayaka the same way anymore. She used to be just a childhood friend, but now, after everything, he's become aware of her in a more romantic/awkward way. She notices he's acting off and calls him out. Meanwhile, he's internally panicking. He doesn't know how to act around her anymore now that his feelings have changed. It's showing their backstory. They were born almost at the same time, grew up together in the countryside, and became inseparable childhood friends. It shows how they grew up. They became strong except Kazuki, and smart once again except Kazuki. He's at home gaming to distract himself, and gets super hyped after winning. Basically, he's trying to take his mind off Sayaka, but just ends up getting loud and carried away. His mom barges in and yells at him for being loud and useless. She's yelling at him for being loud and lazy, showing his home life and how he usually gets nagged while gaming. It shows how they started to drift apart. Sayaka kept improving, top student, good at sports. While Kazuki got hooked on games and became more of a shut-in, she progressed, he stagnated. Sayaka is shown helping out and being responsible, while Kazuki's mom compares him to her, implying he's lazy and not doing his part. Kazuki gets dragged outside by his mom and forced to help with weeding, along with Sayaka. He's shocked and embarrassed that she's at his house while his mom treats it like it's totally normal and even questions why it would be weird. Kazuki admits it's been awkward with Sayaka since that incident and wishes he'd known she was coming. Meanwhile, his mom shuts him down and makes him keep working, even using his game controller as leverage. Kazuki complains about having to wait on his day off, while Sayaka explains she just went for a run since she didn't have practice, and ended up getting roped in by his mom too. Sayaka starts taking weeding seriously and works super fast, impressing Kazuki. He turns it into a competition and pushes himself, refusing to lose to her. While they're weeding together, Sayaka looks at Kazuki with a gentle, slightly warm expression, catching him off guard and making things feel a bit more intimate and awkward for him. Sayaka goes off to work on her own and Kazuki gets flustered, his heart racing. He starts overthinking, feeling like she's acting unusually close and wondering if she's doing it on purpose. Sayaka finds a 4-leaf clover and brings up a childhood memory, how Kazuki once helped her when she couldn't find one. She's reminiscing fondly, but Kazuki barely remembers, creating a quiet emotional gap between them. Sayaka notices Kazuki's indifferent reaction. She looks surprised at first, but it fades into a more serious, slightly hurt expression. Sayaka realizes he forgot their childhood memory and simply says, "I see." But in reality, Kazuki recalls it. They searched for a 4-leaf clover until sunset and their parents had to pick them up. He's surprised that Sayaka still remembers something so small from long ago. Kazuki finds a rare 5-leaf clover and excitedly calls out to show Sayaka, thinking it's something amazing. Sayaka turns and asks what he found. Kazuki suddenly panics, blurts "never mind," and awkwardly dives into the grass. As kids, Kazuki would rush ahead while Sayaka struggled to keep up. She was clumsy and easily tired, asking to slow down while he pulled her along despite them being late. Now things are reversed. Sayaka runs ahead confidently while Kazuki struggles to keep up. He realizes she's grown and matured more than he has, and when she notices him staring, she turns and asks what's wrong. Kazuki says they probably won't make it on time anyway, so she doesn't need to rush. He apologizes to Sayaka, then suddenly runs ahead saying they should take their time, confusing her. Internally, he admits this is the only way. Kazuki runs ahead on purpose so he won't accidentally see up Sayaka's skirt on the steep stairs. He explains, to himself, that if he walks behind her, the angle makes it unavoidable, especially on this shortcut slope. He also notes people warn of that kind of situation, which makes him even more conscious and embarrassed. Kazuki loudly insists, mostly to himself, that he's not a pervert and decides to act like a gentleman by walking ahead of Sayaka. But Sayaka immediately picks up on what he's doing. She reacts with a competitive, slightly annoyed expression and says he'll take last place. Kazuki notices that Sayaka has gotten way faster. She easily runs ahead of him, even though she used to be the slower one when they were kids. He starts overthinking again and figures that if he just keeps his distance and lets her get farther ahead, he won't have to worry about accidentally looking up her skirt. Sayaka suddenly stops, turns around and reaches out toward him, basically interrupting his attempt to avoid her. Sayaka reaches out to him and we see a flashback. It shows that even back then Sayaka reached out to him, but Kazuki avoided the moment and ran off. In the flashback, young Sayaka is struggling to keep up and begs Kazuki not to leave her behind. Kazuki initially keeps going, but then he grabs her hand and helps her up the stairs. He acts a bit rough about it, saying she's hopeless without him, but still helps her anyway. Sayaka thanks him even while getting a bit emotional. Back in the present, Kazuki suddenly snaps and yells, "None of your business," then runs off up the stairs. Sayaka is left behind, surprised and confused by his reaction. They both arrive at school, but they're too late anyway. The teacher calls their names as late arrivals, and they realize all that rushing and awkward tension was pointless. Kazuki comments that they sweat for nothing, while Sayaka looks a bit tired and unimpressed. They're told to wait while the gate is opened. Kazuki realizes the teacher is Yamada-sensei and casually says she's pretty laid back, so it'll probably take a while. As they stand there waiting, Kazuki thinks so slow, feeling a bit annoyed by the delay. Sayaka quietly fixes her hair and adjusts herself while waiting. Sayaka casually ties her hair up, a simple everyday gesture, but to Kazuki it hits completely differently. He can't stop looking at her. He tells himself it's nothing, his reaction says otherwise. He doesn't want to feel this way about her, but the moment lingers and it's obvious that Sayaka isn't just his childhood friend to him anymore. Kazuki is in denial. He insists Sayaka is like a sibling because he doesn't want to see her as a girl, but the way he forces it shows his feelings have already changed. Then when the teacher comes and asks if he's mad at her, he says he's mad at himself.